Mentors are the most important thing that I've found so far in business, and I'm going to go over how I built the best in the entire world. First, I have to take my creatine. Ah, yummy. It's so good. So, first off, a little backstory. Well, I guess where I am currently, just tomorrow morning, I'm going to Robert Kiyosaki's house at 10 a.m. That he wrote the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, probably the best-selling business book of all time. Then after that, I'm going to, well, I just took on Roberts as a client, and then I'm going to Kenny McElroy's house, who he has a 10,000 unit real estate portfolio. And I mean, that is a multi billion dollar company. Today, I was on the phone with my first mentor, though, kind of the guy that allowed all this to happen and the best person in the world. The longer I know George, the better of a guy he is. I mean, it's the opposite with most people. With most people, their evil side comes out, but George's side just gets better and better. PJ can attest to this. I mean, how good of a guy is George? Today, he was helping me out with problems just all day. Well, not really. Someone on a podcast, guy who I kind of started working with, they were very skeptical of the work that I was doing. And so George, we have a group chat with this guy, wrote them this massive, it wasn't that long, but this very stern message, basically saying that they have absolutely no idea what the fuck they're talking about, and was going over all the things. And then me and George were talking about it back and forth a lot about kind of their ignorance to the matter. But all of this kind of related. He said, if you want to scale your business, you have to be able to mention these talking points that these people mentioned. And he was just genuinely trying to help. And he was genuinely reaching out to these people because they were slightly talking bad about me. And so it is the best feeling in the entire world to be surrounded by these types of people. So how do you find a mentor? For George, I was in high school, and instead of going to school, I was studying macroeconomics because I thought, I don't know what to do with my life, but I thought if I could figure out this macroeconomic stuff, I could pretty much do anything. And I would at least have a better idea of what I want to do later on in life. And so there was this guy, George Gammon, who I thought he is the number one person in the entire world I want to work for. He was retired at a very young age, pretty large business guy. And I thought that he was the best at macro. What he was saying really resonated. It was just everything. He was explaining what my subconscious thoughts said to a very high degree, and I had to write down everything because I never understood it. It was a lot of fun, and so I reached out to him and probably 100 other people, dozens and dozens of time. At one point, I was writing to George every single day for a pretty long period of time, and I'll pull up those messages at some point. I'll actually do that with George next time I see him. I think he'd get a kick out of it because there's no way he actually saw it. But how did I start working for him then? And I was in Boston after I turned 18. He was having a meetup in Arizona and said, hey, if anyone wants to come, you can. Just RSVP and show up. And so I RSVP'd, booked a flight. Then I went to the tattoo shop and got his logo tattooed on my leg and said, I'm going to get some skin in the game, literally. And so took my first flight, went to go meet him. And it took me, after meeting him, getting his email, it took me about 6 months after that until I actually started working for him. And then another 2 months until I moved out to live in the same area as him. He put me in some little shithole hotel for, I think I was in Arizona working with him for like 6, 7 months. And then eventually I started a little business. Now that's grown and grown, and now I'm doing better than I could have ever dreamed of. And now I'm working with all these other super large businesses. But it really started with that one connection, because you have to find a way to get yourself in the room. That is the most difficult part when you're an outsider. What value can you provide to let yourself in, especially when you can't provide any value? I couldn't provide much value, but I got to the point where I could talk to macro with George to a very high level. So I started doing macroeconomic research. But then it came down to, well, it doesn't, and this was actually during when the COVID vaccines were starting to become mandated in a lot of countries. And George was incredibly passionate about saying this is ethically, morally, illegally wrong. Goes against everything that the United States stands down for. Forcing someone to put an unknown subject into their body, all of that is besides the point. I would have gotten murdered before I got the clot shot. Anyway. Um, he wanted to get the message out because it was so vitally important. So we came to the realization that it doesn't matter how good your messaging is if no one watches it. So how do you get someone to watch it? And you have to spark curiosity. And so how do you spark curiosity? And that's kind of tapping into the human psyche. And then when you're doing that, how do you get someone to want to watch a video? I mean, George's information is so good and he's so good at explaining things. That was pretty easy. But how do you get someone to want to watch it? And then, I mean, there's a million other components that go into it. And so we got pretty good at that. And then I started helping out some other people and they started to do really well. So then I thought, well, all these large businesses, all these guys that I'm now friends with and hanging out with, they really want to grow a personal brand and they've been doing it for a long time, but they can't do it. I've learned how to get some views. And so why don't I try and just do a little business around this? It will allow me to learn from more business owners so I could learn more about business at a higher rate. If I'm working with a bunch of people, my amount that I'm learning, the amount of mistakes that I'm making is growing at an exponential rate. I'm going to get better faster. And then that's exactly what I did. Where now I'm in the position where I'm working with pretty much any business owner that I want to. It's a lot of fun hanging out with Robert, with Ken, with a bunch of other guys. And so it comes down to providing value. But now it's super easy because I can reach out to virtually any person that I want to. And if I want to work with them, I probably could. Because one of the clients that I have, they would know them, like just pretty much anybody. And there's really, it's pretty surreal, but there's really not a single person online that I couldn't reach out to if I really, really wanted to. So how do you get here? It's super tough. It's super tough. I don't know. There's no easy answer because for me, it took over a year of nothing but reaching out and getting better and better and better at what I was doing and just studying all day, every day. You got to go to live events, I would say, in the subject field that you want to. You have to understand that you are the stupidest person out there. I'm learning that more and more every single day. That's something that I just continuously need to be humbled and my ego needs to get checked. Every single day, I need to start to get a gut punch because your ego gets out of control, especially when you start to make a little bit of money young. I mean, you move into a quasi nice place, a little elevator over there. That was a cool surprise. When we moved into this place, sight unseen, it's a little 3-story apartment with an elevator inside of it. So your ego gets out of control. You got to get the gut punch. I don't know. It's there's a million things that I could recommend, but no one's going to do any of them anyway. So that's why I just give my personal experiences. I just make a video every day because I think it's fun. And there's potentially some people that resonate. And there's no downside. Eventually, I'm going to take this exceptionally seriously because this is what I do for other people as a business. Just, I don't have time right now. I mean, I simply don't have time. Over probably in 3 months, my workload's going to go down quite a bit because I'll have a team that will be able to do a lot of the work for me. That time is not now, though. And so, anyway, just strolling along. So, I guess, where was I going with this? So, how do you find a mentor? I don't know. You have to be able to provide something for them. And me and George are best friends now. There is nothing more electric than, at least George is my best friend, or at least one of them. I think he would say something similar though. Uh, I want to make a video. I know George doesn't watch these, or at least I hope he doesn't. That'd be embarrassing. But one of my biggest first goal is I want to retire the family, and then I want to buy George a watch collection for every dollar that he's ever given me, and then probably a few extra 100,000 after that, because he deserves my life completely changed because of George. And so when I'm start to make a lot of money, I want to pay George back with everything, with a cool watch collection, and then maybe a car. He really likes really nice cars, and so that I want to do within the next few years. And then I want to make a video. You know how people make those videos of the truth about X person, Justin Bieber. I would do the truth about George Gammon. Then it would just be like the best video in the entire world about how great of a guy he is. Just an example. His maid got exceptionally sick, or just one day on the bus coming over, she like passed out or something, and they sent her to the hospital. But because she was poor, they sent her to the poor hospital. George said, "No, go pick her up, take her from that hospital to the super high end hospital that I go to." They said, "Well, what? She doesn't have health insurance." He said, "Don't worry, I'll cover everything. I just want to make sure she gets the best care because I just want to make sure that she's okay." And he never even questioned the money aspect of it. And I could give you a million examples of things like this that go on. and he takes the time to make sure that everything is good at all times. It's just the quality of character that he has. And so, since he's the first person that I started working for, and he has such a high degree of moral integrity and always trying to do good by other people, then when I start to take on some of these other clients and I realize, holy fuck, this guy's a douchebag. I mean, behind the scenes, he is a complete asshole. It's tough for me to imagine because I was so used, I got it really good. I got super, super lucky that the person's logo I got tattooed on my leg. I mean, I knew in a gut feeling that George was the person to do this for, but it was a better decision than I could have ever have dreamed of. And so, what's also ironic is I knew that I was going to be working for George. I remember with my mom, we'd go for walks when everything was shut down during COVID. We'd take our dogs out for walks, and I was trying to explain to her quantitative easing because that's what I was learning during the day. This is what I was thinking about, just macro. Like, so how does quantitative easing work from the bank's balance sheet? How does it work on the Fed's balance sheet? What's actually going on from like a actual plumbing standpoint? And obviously, my mom didn't get it because I also wasn't good in explaining it. And I was thinking, well, I'm going to be working for George one of these days, and then I'll have someone to talk to. And I remember this vividly. My mom does too. I actually kind of forgot about it, but she would remind me. And then the same thing maybe a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, I was making videos on this channel saying I was going to be working with Ken McElroy. That was before I ever talked to him about this. I said, there's a 100% chance that I'm going to be working for Ken because I'm going to show incredible results. That is exactly what has happened. And then in the summertime with PJ, he's going downstairs to rest in his room right now. But I was saying there is a 100% certainty that we'll be working with Kiyosaki when we get back to Scottsdale. Instantly, every single one of those things happened. Not instantly, they took a long time and a lot of effort, but when you really can visualize something, I don't know what it is to it, but it's happened every single time. And when I'm kind of skeptical about something happening, not really sure, it never does. Or if it does, not to the degree that I was expecting. And so there's really something to that gut intuition and being able to just feel something before it happens and visualizing it very, very clearly. I mean, I could visualize every single step of it. So business is awesome. It sucks a lot of the times. It's incredibly difficult, but I think it's worth every single second of it. And so we got to sell George's trucks today because he has some old trucks. We have them here in Scottsdale. We're gonna go sell them. We got to go take really good pictures of it in the sunlight. Put them on Craigslist or whatever the hell you do, and get them sold for him. So I got to go.